Today I wanted to teach you how to make this, the hexagon portal things that we see in the Spider-Verse universe that I absolutely love. And the cool thing is, it's also a revisit to this M2 Mac Mini that I have. So a while ago I made a review video on this showing how powerful the device is and how this is a really good computer given the price that it comes at, which I believe to this day is still $600. But I also wanted to demonstrate the power of this device still after all this time by doing this effect on here and recording it for you. So this entire video, I'm just gonna quickly recreate that portal effect that I made. Feel free to follow along in case you wanna recreate it yourself and see how your computer holds up. But ultimately, I think this would just be a nice revisit for the device, and let's create that cool effect. All right, so if you guys see here on screen, I'm gonna go ahead and press play. You guys can see just what I was able to create here on the M2 Mac Mini, showing just how much power this thing still has. So the cool thing about this is that this is definitely recreatable, and the best part is you don't need any cool plugins. This is using just what After Effects already has. But let's go ahead and recreate this. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new composition here. Instead of doing it in 4K, let's go ahead and do it in 1920 by 1080. We can call this, I don't know, SpiderVerse effect or SpiderVerse background, I guess. So what we're gonna do is first we're gonna go to our shape layers right up here. You're gonna go to the polygon tool. Now, because we only need the outline for this, we don't need anything in the center to be filled. We're gonna go ahead and turn off this fill here. You're gonna change that to none. So now right here at the stroke, you'll see it's at 56. So when I go ahead and draw it on here, you'll see that it did indeed create this cool shape. But the thing is, we don't need a polygon. We need the hexagon, I believe is the name. So what we're gonna do is just go to the polygon path. And then when you go to the path, you're gonna change it from 5 points to 6. There you go. Now, once you change that, let's go ahead and actually name our layers because we always have to shape and organize our layers. So you're gonna go ahead and change this to Hexagon 1. And then let's also match it by the color that this is gonna be in. So we'll do Hexagon 1 is gonna be this yellow. So we're gonna actually duplicate this a few times. So let's go ahead and do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's actually keep them in order here. So Hexagon 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, we're gonna change the color for each hexagon. So we're gonna go down kind of like a color wheel, so to speak. So if we got one that's already bright yellow, let's go to another darker color. So we're just gonna move this down a little bit to this kind of like light orange. And then for hexagon 2, because that is now our light orange, we're gonna change this to orange. After that light orange, we're gonna go down a little bit further. So instead of light orange, let's get a little bit darker, almost kind of like in the red territory. And then the last but not least, we're gonna do the actual red, but that one is on me, so I will just make it a darker red. Cool. Now, if you notice on my timeline here, I have them all organized, but you haven't seen any of these colors on screen pop up yet. And that's because they're not all separated yet in a three-dimensional space. If anything, they're just all on top of each other. So that's the next thing we're gonna work on. So we can go ahead really quick. First though, is change this hexagon rotation. Let's start this hexagon, what is that, 20? 30. 30 should be good. There you go. After that, we're gonna rotate the next one to be, let's say, just a little bit more than 30. So let's say 45. We'll start the next one. Instead of 45 degrees, let's do 60. And then I kind of, no, maybe we should do 75 for the last one. Let's see. Yeah, that looks cool. So that way they're all starting on different like degrees of rotation. So that way they're not all in the same. But you can see now on screen all the different colors, right? Which is pretty nice. So the next thing we can do then is we don't have to animate it just yet, but I will just to get the animation out the way. So let's say we want to make this 10 seconds. So I'll just go ahead and put it at the 10-second mark. Now, for those of you that don't have the same length, like my composition, I kept it at 30 seconds. I should have just made it smaller. But one cool thing you can do is you're gonna put your mouse all the way to the right side where the work area ends. You can see right here where my mouse is. We're gonna drag that on over to the 10-second mark. And then you get to right click the work area, and then you're gonna trim comp to work area. Bam. So now your composition is merely just the length of what it is that you actually wanted. So in those 10 seconds though, let's go ahead and do our rotation. So let's say for hexagon 1, we wanted to complete 2 rotations. For hexagon 2 though, because we want it to slowly go faster at the end, and the ones in the front are going to be a little bit slower, we're going to double the speed each time we go down. So instead of 2 here, we'll do 4. And then the next one, instead of 4 or 0, we'll do 6. Ooh, that's 65. We want it at 6. And then the last one will be 8. All right. So let's go ahead and put this in the beginning and play it back. Wow, that's that's spinning really fast, actually. Goodness. But that's all right. So let's just check it out. We can always change this later if we realize this was too fast, which I'm starting to think it was. Maybe one rotation ought to do it. But let's keep it going. So now that we have our colors in place, we have our shapes, the next thing we want to do is actually create them in that 3D space. So the way to do that is you're going to go ahead and right click, click new. You're going to go to camera. And then you can just leave everything how it is. You can just call this camera instead of camera 1, but it doesn't matter. All right, you have that on the top layer, and then you're going to go ahead right here. So in case you don't see this, because you see how I have a cube here for 3D layer, and then I have these 3 boxes. If you don't have that on your timeline, like yours looks different, all you have to do is click right here where it says toggle switches and modes. You click that, and this is probably what you had. So now you're going to go down there and click it again, and bam. Nice little pro tip for you guys, so you guys don't get lost in this tutorial. So make sure you have it where it looks like this, so you have your 3D space icons here. So you're going to go ahead and make everything into a 3D layer. Now, if you guys want, instead of like closing everything out, you can always click U whenever you highlight anything that has keyframes. You see that? That way they can just open to what is being used and close automatically. All right, moving on. We're going to switch this now from a one view so basically we have it right now in one view, and the one view is a front view of everything, but we created everything in a 3D space, but we have to now actually create that depth. So the way to do that is let's go ahead and change this from one view to 2. You can even click 4 if you want, so you get multiple angles. I usually just use 2 for this though, because that's all I really need. But now if you notice, when I click, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. There you go. When I click, you'll see that this little icon pops up anytime I click one of these hexagons, and that's because that is that 3D space that we created. So all we have to do is make the one that's supposed to be on top closer to the camera, the one in the back, or number 4, or hexagon 4, the one at the last place, it's going to be the one furthest from the camera. So here's what I mean. Hexagon 1, I will click that. I'm going to grab the Z-axis and just bring it on forward, probably right there. Okay, next we have hexagon 2. So hexagon 2 can just come a little bit closer. Hexagon 3 could stay where it's at, and then hexagon 4, you want to push it back. But now here's the thing. There's a lot of ways where you can perfect this where it's like mathematically accurate and they're all separated and equal. But what I just like to do is I just kind of like to play it by eye and just kind of tinker around with it. If anything, it just allows me to really understand this software more, the more I can manually do this tinkering rather than having the computer do it for me. So then that way, there you go. All I was doing, as you can see, was I was just creating more and more depth because my goal is to eventually have all of the hexagons within the fill that is there. I want the hexagons to fit within each other. So if you notice, the yellow one fits the orange. The orange one now fits this, or a darker orange, and this darker orange inside it fits the red. So that was the goal there. Once you do this by just mixing around with the Z-axis and kind of playing with the camera angle, you can now go ahead and let's preview this really quick by pressing space. All right. Now, I definitely think that the last ones are going way too fast. So what we can do is quickly just adjust the keyframes by going all the way to the end here. We're going to highlight all of our layers, press U, and then let's change the timing. So the first one I had as 2 full rotations with 30 degrees. We're going to change that to 1. Let's try the second hexagon at 2. Let's do the third one at 3, and then the last one at 4. Maybe that's a lot better. And then play that back. There we go. That to me looks a lot better. Actually, yeah, I actually like this. Now that we have all our rotations going on here, you probably just want a nice simple background layer for this so we can start seeing it like kind of in action in the colors. So all we have to do is right click, click new. You're going to go to solid and then just name it whatever color you're going to make the background. For me, I'm going to just make it probably black. Black fits best. Actually, no. Well, actually, I got an idea. Let's make just create a solid black layer, and then make sure that it's all the way in the bottom. There you go. So that way we can see like this. And then what you can do too is you can actually have fun with this if you'd like, and there's many ways that you can do this. But let's say we create this layer, and now we're gonna go to our effects and presets panel, which for me is on the top right here, but you feel free to look for yours. And you can just name this as 4. You can just type in the number 4, and then you'll see right here, 4 color gradient. Let's just throw that on top of the black solid background. And now if you notice, you created these points of different colors. And then on the top left here in the effect controls, you can see the different colors that they are. So let's actually just make this nice. Now, if you notice, yellow and blue are across each other. So is this pink purplish with the green. So let's just make sure that they're kind of, complementing each other, so to speak. So for me, what I'll do is make this yellow black. I'll make that blue black. And then I will make this pink. I'll keep this pink actually, or whatever color this is. And then I'm going to get the drop tool color and get that exact same color for the other side. Ooh, which I messed up right there. It's the green. There you go. And then last but not least, what you can do is you can blend these together a little more, blend them a little less. You can decrease or increase opacity if you had a separate layer in the bottom. But what I'm going to do is once you click on the 4-point or the 4 color gradients, you have these little anchor points where you can click and mess around with that. You see that? Kind of cool, ain't it? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put the point further away from the actual center here. You see that? Because then what I can do really quick is actually right here on point 1. Well, what are the points that we have? So if I move this one, this is point 3. The way I know that is on the top left right here, you'll see that the numbers are moving. Same with this one. Which one's this one? Point 2. So we can keyframe point 2 and point 3. So color point 2, color point 3, and then I'm going to move this across, and then I'm just going to move this slightly up, move this slightly down. And then if I play that back, bam, look at that. We have these nice colors. They're subtly moving, which is a nice little effect to give this. All right, so now we have our shapes. We have our background. So kind of the last couple things we want to do here to create that effect is you're going to go back to your layers here, this layers panel. Now, if you look by just scrolling out from this camera, this is that camera layer that we have, that we created, because this camera is what is allowing us, you see that? To see all this stuff in a 3D space. Kind of cool, ain't it? Now, the thing is, these hexagons are in a 3D space, but the background isn't. So, and that's just because I don't have the layer as a 3D layer. If I clicked it, then you'll see that the background will also be affected by the 3D space, but I don't want that. I just want the shapes to be affected, so I'll turn that one off, and then there you go. Now again, I get to move. So that's what we're gonna do. We get to now just play really quick with this camera. So the simple way to do this is we just need to transform its position. Now, for the position of this, of course, it's gonna depend on what we wanna do, but to make it simple is we're just gonna go ahead and put the camera in the back, like keep it furthest where all these hexagons are in view. You can go ahead and just put a keyframe on the position, and then all the way at the end, in the 10-second mark, where do you want the camera to end up? I would want the camera to be right here, somewhere around that. So then that way, when I just go back to the beginning and I press space, you can see that the camera is subtly moving in to where I want it to be within those 10 seconds. Kind of a cool effect. All right, so now that we have our camera movement, what we can do now is give these hexagons that cool glow that they all have. And the way to do that is you're gonna go to your effects and presets, you're gonna click and type in the word glow. Now, we're gonna go one by one so you can see this effect in action. What you're gonna do is left click that glow, drag it onto hexagon 1, and then if you notice on the hexagon that it does slightly glow. Now, if I turn it off and on, you can see that difference. Now, the cool thing is with this glow, it'll do the job where you can mess with the settings and get that effect that you want. So if I go ahead and increase the glow radius here, look at that. You can make it really nice and shiny. So, okay, let's say I like mine like that as it is already. That looks great. So what I can do now is just Control C or Command C, and then to copy this glow. I'm clicking the glow, Command C or Control C, and then you're gonna paste it to Hexagon 2. And then now if you notice, Hexagon 2 has that really cool glow now as well. So now let's move on to Hexagon 3, and last but not least, Hexagon 4. And then look at that. Now they have that really nice glow effect. It makes it look amazing. It gives it that nice little sprinkle on top, which I personally think looks really cool. Okay, so now that they all have their cool glows, we have the camera movement. The last thing we can do is give it that sprinkle on top to really give it a final oomph to this. So one thing we're gonna do already now is we're gonna mess with the camera depth of field. So we're gonna go to our camera layer, we're gonna bring it on down, and then we're gonna turn on right here where it says depth of field. Once you turn that on, it may not be visible immediately, right? So let's just say I'm gonna do, because I want a nice blur with mine, let's just say right here at aperture 160 pixels looks cool. Now, if I go to, instead of one view to two now, and then I'm gonna bring this out so I can view more, and then we look at this camera, right? If I start bringing down the focus distance, if you notice in my custom view, you'll see that square, that rectangle rather, that starts to go back and forth. That is because now I'm messing with the focus distance, meaning where do I want the camera to be primarily focused? So to give it a cool effect, what we can do is keep it right on the orange, increase a little bit more on that aperture. So then that way, when you play this back now, it has this cool, like certain focus depth with this shot. So now you'll notice the most front one is blurry, but everything in like where that focus distance is actually in focus. So it gives it a nice, cool camera effect as if you were using a real camera. I really hope that makes sense because maybe I'm not the best at explaining it, but I think it does the job. Okay, so now that we have everything in place, the last thing you have to do that I think would give this an extra oomph to make it look really nice is we're gonna right click, we're gonna create a brand new adjustment layer, and make sure that adjustment layer is under the camera because I don't want this to affect the camera, but it wouldn't, what we're gonna do anyway, but still, gotta be organized. We're gonna go to our effects panels, we're gonna type in the word grain, we're gonna add grain to that adjustment layer, and then we're gonna switch it from the viewing mode from preview to final output. So that way you can see some grain on the camera, which really gives this whole effect just a nicer grain feel, but mess with the intensity, get it to where you think is a nice balance between too grainy while also looking cool, which I think for me, I'm looking at 0.4 maybe, gotta do it, 0.4. And then if you look closely, maybe I should put this in full here. Now, here's one thing. The reason mine is struggling with this playback, it is not like the fact that I don't have a strong computer. It's just my RAM. After Effects likes to play things in the RAM itself, and that's how you get really good smooth playback, the more RAM you have. But nonetheless, the fact that I'm able to create this with only 8 gigs, just having every now and then an occasional stutter here, this is pretty good. All right, I think we're ready for a render. So let's go ahead and go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. We're gonna put this into the desktop, or you can put it wherever you'd like. I'm gonna call mine SpiderVerse background, and let's go ahead and click render. That took literally was that 5 seconds to render? Wow. And just like that, we created a really cool SpiderVerse background, which you can use this as a title card for your videos. Heck, that's actually what I did recently. I used this and made this for the most recent video that I made. Now, the cool thing is you can mess with this however you want. You can have each hexagon have its own unique pattern. You can create it to have like a picture, kind of like a marble-esque picture thing where you see the pictures within the rings. There's a lot you can do with this. But I also hope that this goes to show that this Mac Mini, this M2 Mac Mini Studio or whatever, is still amazing. It still runs very well, and it's still capable of a lot of professional work. The only difference is I still recommend, such as I said in my original review, that if you really are looking to use this for a lot of your professional work, you might want to increase the RAM, 16 gigabytes at minimum, and that's like the absolute minimum. If you want to go for the 24, I would recommend it. I have a 256 gig, but I recommend getting more storage unless you have an external storage for that. I just recommend you to really beef this up if you intend to get this for your professional work. The difference is, I know the more money we add to this, the more value you can get by upgrading. But if none of you need a more intensive CPU, like you've already seen what we can do with the CPU at hand, then maybe you can just save the money and get a tricked out version of this. And the fact is that you're getting something in such a small form factor, which is probably why you wanted to buy it. Maybe the size and the convenience of lugging this around was exactly the purpose of buying it. So I don't know, it's going to depend on you and your needs, but I wanted to make this a show. This is still such a very capable device, depending on what you need to use it for. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video, and hopefully again you continue to see how well this computer can run, especially given for the money. The M2 chip is nothing to scoff at, so if you guys are interested, hopefully this video helps you decide if you're gonna end up buying one or not. But if you have any other questions, leave them down in the comment section. I'll get to them as soon as I can. And then if you wanna see another follow-up, if you want me to do something else, try a new effect, or if you guys wanna learn more, let me know and I would like to do that for you. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.